Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the tutorial for my software synthesizer called the Viol'TronCello. In this video, we're going to explore the engine deeper and how the graphical user interface is wired to the engine parameters, as well as what kind of scripts were implemented in order to get even more out of the instrument. In case you haven't seen part 1 where I introduced the instrument and show off some cool presets, please find a link in the info card or the description box below. Let's begin. If we take a peek inside the Kontakt engine, then we can see that there are baked-in loop points inside each sample. These were set in Reaper and imported into Kontakt. If you'd like to know how this works, please check out Dave Hilowitz's video on how to prep samples for Kontakt. The most important thing that had to be installed in order to make this instrument's basic functions work were the volume envelope and these MIDI modulators. First, the envelope. The samples were recorded with a single kind of articulation in order to give the user the best flexibility. When you apply an envelope on the volume, you can tweak the attack and even more parameters as you wish. These MIDI CC modulators are connected to the GUI elements. They represent the position of each respective GUI element at each dynamic level, detune step and oscillator within a range of 0 to 127. So, for example, if we choose the group 0_FF, FF stands for fortissimo, which is the loudest dynamic in classical music, then CC14 represents the oscillator. If you turn it all the way left, 0_FF won't sound at all. If you turn it up fully to the right, it will sound at full volume. CC12 is the dynamic level. Here we have FF dynamic, fortissimo dynamic, which means the GUI element needs to be slided up to the last sixth of the lane. CC13 represents the detune step position, so that lane has its highest point between 3/7 and 4/7 of the whole lane. At last, here you get a glimpse of the script that I've been working on since December 2020. When I load the snapshot called Basic, which is the universal starting point for any ambitious sound design adventure, then we get a simple overview of the graphical user interface. We have the detune knob here and the dynamic slider here, as well as the note display that shows you which note you are playing. Over here is the oscillator section with a few extra controls that make the handling easier, but would require too much time to explain at this point, so they can be ignored just yet. Here we have only the very basic and most vital envelope controls, attack and release. A filter section with a resonance knob that triggers both the high pass and the low pass filter's resonance. A master tune section that changes the pitch of the whole instrument, which is useful to create even more colors. +1 makes the sound more tight, while -1 makes it more soft. A reverb knob with a mono stereo switch and scripted automatic adjustment of the master volume. And last but not least, the LFO on pitch controls that are still lacking some custom graphics at this point. So if we click the simple advanced button up here, we get many more controls that enable us to tweak the sound even deeper. Here we can adjust the pitch bend range and switch from semitones to cents. This fat button is a tape saturator. We get an attack curve knob as well as velocity, plus hold, decay and sustain sliders in the envelope section. In this unisono section, we can set number of voices, detune and spread, and get really cool effects out of this. This chord knob here will automatically generate chords built on the note that you're playing. Finally, we have two utility controls here. This instrument volume knob that comes with a master volume reset button is a substitute for the master volume slider, as that one can't be controlled by a script. Some patches, however, require a softer master volume, for example when you use several voices in the unisono section. So in order to save the master volume with a snapshot, I scripted this knob and reset button. At last, we have a switch to turn the high and low pass filters on or off, which can be very helpful to save a good amount of CPU when you have complex snapshots, like for example the Robo Party. By the way, all of these GUI elements, as well as the engine modulators and effects, are persistent, which enables you to save your created sounds easily into snapshots. Here is a little hint on the side. If you want to create really good knobs without the hassle of having to align everything manually inside photo editing softwares like Affinity Photo, then I recommend you check out JKnobMan. This little tool that was coded by a Japanese JavaScript programmer has saved me countless of hours and has actually been quite fun to work with. The only downside is that it doesn't work on M1 Macs, and it probably won't be updated because its founder hasn't been active for many years. There is a web version that is still online and working, but I definitely recommend to download the application if you can, as it hosts more features. With this, I shall conclude part 2 of this tutorial series. In the next part, we will get into what kind of functions and improvements I have planned for the future with this instrument. Stay tuned and see you in the next video.